Hey out there on YouTube, I'm going to show you how I've built one of my decks. This one I call my Guildgate deck because it uses a lot of the Guildgates in them. So let's get started. The first card I'm going to show you is a Steam Vent, which gives you a blue and red. They're all tappable manas for a double. I have two Rootbound Crags in the deck, which give you red and green, and I also have a Kazindu Refuge, which also gives you red and green. I have a Blood Crypt, which gives you black and red, and I also have a Rakdos Guildgate, which gives you black and red, so there's two of those there. I have two Arkham Sanctums, which actually give you a white, a blue, or a black, so those are nice. And then I also have two Savage Lands, which give you a black, red, and green. If you can't tell, this is a 5-color deck. I also have a Reliquary Tower because five-color decks are really hard sometimes to get the right mana you need to put out the things you want. Then I have, of course, the regular land. You have 4 mountains. I have 4 plains. I have 3 forests right there. I have 5 islands, and then I have 5 swamps. This is actually a pretty decent sized deck. So get those out of the way. Then it's on to my deck itself. The first card I'm going to show you is my Honden of Infinite Rage. What's cool about that guy is for every shrine that you control on your upkeep, you get to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. So there are 5 shrines, 1 for each color. You have all 5 shrines, you can do 5 damage to somebody. The next one, if you hadn't guessed, is Honden of Night's Reach. This one is, at the beginning of your upkeep, your opponent discards a card for each shrine that you control. Again, you have all 5 shrines. They're discarding 5 cards from their hand each one of your turns. This one is Hondens of Life Web. At the beginning of your upkeep, you get to put a 1/1 insect creature token down for each shrine you control. And the last one I have, because unfortunately I don't have the white one, is Honden of Seeing Wind. This one you get to draw a card for each shrine you control. Then I have an enchantment called Memory Erosion. And whenever a player plays a spell or ability, or no, it's just a spell, they have to take the top 2 cards of their library. This is also an enchantment. It's called Oblivion Ring. And what Oblivion Ring does is when you play it, you choose a card, and you exile that card for as long as Oblivion Ring is on the deck, on the field. This one is Maya's Ariel. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have a creature 5 or greater, you get to put a 1/1 counter on it for each creature that you have. When you have a creature 10 or greater, you gain 10 life. If you have any creatures 20 or greater, you win the game. So it's something to make your opponents focus on while you're building up the rest of your board. This is just a Bear Umbra. I like it because if you attack with a creature, it gets +2/+2, but you get to untap all your land. This card is called Stolen Goods. Basically, you pick an opponent, and they reveal the top of their library until they reveal a non-land card, and you get to play that without paying its mana cost. And then they have to throw the rest of that into exile. This is called Cruel Ultimatum. It's a sorcery. Target opponent sacrifices a creature, discards 3 cards, and loses 5 life. You get to return a creature card from the graveyard, draw 3 cards, and gain 5 life. This is for people who like to play with mill decks. It's called Psychic Spiral. It's an instant. You shuffle all cards from your graveyard into your hand, and they have to discard that many cards from their library. This card can get a little confusing. It's called Epic Experiment. It's exile the X top cards of your library. For each instant or sorcery card that you exiled, if it cost X or less, you can play them without paying their mana costs. Okay, I also have 2 Spirit Mentals in the deck. They're useful because it gives a creature +1/+1 and they have protection from creatures, which means your creatures don't do crap. I have a Cultivate, which is a sorcery. It lets you search your library for up to 2 basic land types, put one into your hand and the other one onto the battlefield tapped. Fertile Ground, it lets you tap your mana for any color on the one you enchant. And then I also have Trace of Abundance, which actually doubles whatever mana you put it on. I usually put them on one of the tricolor lands. This way I get a double of my choice of one of the 3 colors. And then, of course, there's Jace's Erasure, which every time you draw a card, somebody has to put the top card of their library in the graveyard. Then I am on to my artifacts, which I don't have a lot of artifacts in this deck. My artifacts are Grind Clock, which you tap it, you put a charge counter on it, and then you tap it again. How many charge counters you've put on it, that's how many cards somebody has to tank from the top of their library. There is Shell of the Last Kappa. This one's a legendary artifact. You pay 3 and you remove a spell that targets you from the game. And then you pay 3, you sacrifice Shell of the Last Kappa. You choose one of the spells that you exiled that way, and you get to play it. This is Quicksilver Amulet. I do have a lot of expensive creatures in the deck, so this is kind of useful if you can get the card out. It's pay 4, tap, and I can put any creature card from my hand onto the battlefield. And then, of course, a Gilded Lotus, which adds 3 of any color to my mana pool. And then I am on to the creatures. First guy I want to show you is Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger. He irritates people because he's a 6/7 with Trample. He doubles my mana, and he makes it so that my opponents cannot tap their... Once they tap their mana, they cannot untap it for 1 turn. So 1 full go around, they can't untap their mana. Then I have Spellbreaker Behemoth. He's a 5/5. He can't be countered, and any creature 5 or greater can't be countered. This one's called Angel of Glory Rise. She's a flying 4/6. And when she enters the battlefield, she brings back all humans from your graveyard, and all zombies are exiled. This is a Sun Titan. He's a 6/6 with Vigilance, and whenever Sun Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return a card power 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, but it has to be a permanent. It can't be an instant or a sorcery. This is Clone. Basically, when he comes in, you choose a creature and you say Clone becomes that creature, and he becomes a copy of it, power, toughness, and ability. So that's a cool little card to have. This is Predator Ooze. He is a 1/1 indestructible, and you're thinking, okay, it's a 1/1. But whenever he attacks, he gets a 1/1. Whenever a creature is dealt damage by him dies, he gets another 1/1. So he's a pumpable 1/1. That's indestructible. Glissna the Traitor is a 3/3 with First Strike and Death Touch. So that makes her a pretty useful card. And whenever a creature opponent controls is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, I may return an artifact card from my graveyard to my hand. This is Deathpack Angel. She's a 5/5 flyer, and whenever she dies, she puts a 1/1 spirit creature token out that basically you pay her mana cost again, and you get to bring Deathpack Angel back out. This is Chajora Preserver. That spells and abilities opponent's controls can't make you sacrifice permanents. So that's a useful little card, and he's a little 2/1. This is Niv-Mizzet the Firemind. Is one of the legendary dragons that came out of a couple sets ago. He's a 4/4 flyer, and whenever you draw a card, he deals 1 damage to target creature or player, and you can tap him to draw a card. This little card's really cheap. It's a little 2/2 and it costs 2. And what's useful about her is when you bring her out, you get to choose any card you want to call, and nobody can play that card the rest of the game. This is my Summoner Sphinx. He's a 3/3 flyer, and when he comes out, I get to search my library for an artifact creature card, reveal it, and put it into my hand. I usually use him to search for my Magistry Sphinx, which is a 5/5 flyer. But when he hits the battlefield, an opponent of your choice, his life total becomes 10. This is Alicor's Elocutors. He's a 3/5. At the beginning of your upkeep, you put a filibuster counter on him. If you have 5 or more filibuster counters, you win the game. This is Drana Kalastria Bloodchief. She is a 4/4 flyer that's pumpable. What she does is you pay the 2 black and then X, and you take that away from your opponent's defender, and she gains that much power. So basically you can kill one of their creatures while pumping her and still attack. This I put in there usually just for a life gainer. It's Sangromancer. She's a 3/3, but whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you get to gain 3 life. Whenever they have to discard a card, you get to gain 3 life. This is Keeper of Progenitus. He's basically a land pumper because whenever a player taps a mountain, forest, or plains, they get to double them. So they get 2 mountains, forests, or plains. This is Kevlar the Merciless. He's a 3/5, and whenever an opponent casts a spell, I get to take the mana cost of that spell and do that much damage to them or their creatures. This guy I lucked out on. I pulled him out of a fat pack. It's Gideon, Champion of Justice. He comes into play with 4 loyalty counters. And his +1 ability is put loyalty counters on Gideon, Champion of Justice for each creature target opponent controls. His 0 ability is you turn him into a indestructible creature, which power and toughness is equal to his loyalty counters. And -15 is you exile all other permanents but him. This guy, I really fell in love with the Eldrazi set, and I ended up buying him when they first came out with them. It's Emrakul the Aeon's Torn. He's a 15/15. He cannot be countered, and he cannot be the target of colored spells. He's Annihilate of 6. If you don't know what Annihilate is, it's basically somebody has to sacrifice 6 permanents. And he also gives you an extra turn when he comes out. This guy is called Lone Missionary. He's just a 2/1, but he's useful because you gain 4 life when he hits the battlefield. This is Wall of Denial. It's a 0/8 wall, but it's flying and has Shroud, so that makes it a useful wall. This is Knight of Glory. He has protection from black. He's a 2/1. This is Elite Inquisitor. He has first strike and vigilance and protection from zombies, vampires, and werewolves. And last but not least is Carnage Worm, which is a 6/6. Thanks for watching.